Hey, welcome everybody to the next installment of Nearbound at Work. This is only our second, but every Wednesday, same place, same link, every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. In fact, next week, I'll give you a little teaser. Next week's going to be a really interesting one. We're going to talk about Nearbound account-based marketing. So bringing partner data into building your target lists, running campaigns, and some really unique things there. So Jessica Fulis from Inverta is going to be joining us. But today, I'm excited. We've got Negar Nikaeein. I think I got that last name close-ish. And Chris Gorsuch. Negar's from PartnerStack, the Senior Strategic Alliance Manager, and Chris is the Senior Partnerships Manager at Workable. And we're going to just kind of get into getting down to like basics of managing partner relationships and different types of partners. What do the pros, people who are really good at this, like the people that are joining us today? I didn't even mention you, Kevin. This is terrible. So uncouth of me. Kevin Linehan.
I'm just happy to be invited back after week one, right? So
after the week one debacle,
there's a co-host curse. So we haven't hit that mark yet here in 5 minutes into week two.
You're on thin ice, and I heard that next week you're questionable, so we'll have to see. So I want to jump in, start off with a quote. When I was talking to Negar yesterday about this session, she was like, yeah, I told, I don't remember who you said you told. You were talking with somebody else, and you said, I use Reveal, PartnerStack, and Salesforce every single day to manage my partnerships. And she's like, once you start using it, you will wonder how you ever worked with partners without it. And I thought that was a great quote, because I think a lot of people, especially if you're relatively new to partnerships, maybe you're still kind of working off of spreadsheets and you're not availing yourself of some of the tools that are out there, maybe even some of the tools that you have access to. And we want to just kind of get into the nitty gritty of how you are managing your partners day to day and using some of this data and using some of these tools. So Negar, I want to start with you. What I guess, well, first let's ask what type of partnerships for both of you. What type of partnerships are you primarily running and managing?
Cool. Thank you. Excited to be here. I work with, I started off my career at PartnerStack working with a lot of our agency and consultant partners. And then since then, I've moved more into strategic alliances with either strategic agency partners or launching actually and managing our entire tech partner program. So this focus on extensibility, and I pretty much split my time between agencies and tech partners now.
No, this is the common thing with partner managers. It's like, what kind? Everything, all of it. Chris, what about you?
So we have two core, we would describe as core partner types at Workable. Technology partners who are integrated into Workable as part of our sort of extended solution ecosystem, and then channel partners. Day to day, I predominantly look after the channel partnership programs, and I have 5 programs, nearly 6 at the moment, that are wrapped up into PartnerStack. But those are kind of made up of consultancies and trusted advisor programs predominantly. Mostly HR people who are kind of recommending our solution. On the technology side, I have a partner product manager who works with me on building out integration partnerships, and he looks after those technology partners on the day-to-day, and that's like broadly how we're divided. Got
it. Negar, I think you had some slides kind of walking us through. I would love to just start out like, how do you start your day? I mean, how are you prioritizing and managing? And maybe we should start with, more specifically. Let's say you're launching a new partnership. So how do you decide kind of what direction to go with that partnership?
Cool. Okay. I have shared my screen for what I put together. And I kind of broke everything down into the life cycle that a partner might fall into. So starting first with how I evaluate and scope, I think first I want to shout out Devin Ravel for the support. He met with me. We talked about how he prioritizes his partnerships in the tech space. Let me pick his brain. And this is kind of what we came up with from that conversation. I think, obviously having these mutual KPIs are really great. But in order to build that, if the data isn't there to back up how we're going to achieve the KPIs, then they're kind of being set for nothing. So a lot of the questions that I ask myself and some of the data that I try to get at the beginning of, when we're evaluating or scoping a partner might be, what does their internal team size look like? Do they have a large CS team or AE team, for example? Of course, what does the account mapping say? Do we have a large set of either overlapping customers to justify an integration, or perhaps we work with the same ICP and there's a lot of potential for mutual referrals back and forth if it's an agency or a tech partner? And then general willingness, can we rate that on a scale? The resources available to get the work done. And then, we put this together to basically help us pump out a number that identifies what the effort might end up looking like. And ultimately, the goal of this is, how am I going to get buy-in from my team and with who? So if I can put together some of the data that shows, the value from an agency perspective, marketing resources that we might need to implement, then this will get that internal buy-in with product or marketing or, my leadership in order to justify working with those partners.
I love it. Chris, do you have a similar kind of matrix with, I like these categories: business value, customer demand, product value, overlapping customers? Curious if you have a similar evaluation tool.
Yeah, so we use, it's interesting, I talk about different use cases, but just sort of zoning in on tech partners, because it's kind of common use case that a lot of people want to understand a bit better. We receive a large volume of inbound applications. So when we started like about a year and a half ago, picking up the kind of partnership function here, we were sort of dwarfed by this volume of inbound inquiries and trying to figure out which ones were good and which ones were not good, and which ones we wanted to pursue now and which ones we want to put resources into now and which ones were for later. So what we started doing as a very first step is we started using mutual customer overlap from Reveal as a kind of a hard qualification criterion if we even start conversations. So that was where our kind of scorecard or evaluation tools started. And then we look at, on top of that, we look at white space in our ecosystem to see where we don't have partners in certain categories and look at those. And those were our first two kind of qualifying criteria. We've since built out a more complex model, which is really about how we pick up which partners we work with at a later stage, which is something I know we've kind of talked about touching on, which really looks at, their reach and how much mutual customer overlap we have, how much prospect customer overlap we have, to really, again, get, like Negar saying, to get buy-in and kind of like alignment with our demand gen and marketing teams, that we should put resources into, things like webinars and other activities like content production or guides, just so we don't kind of put those resources in the wrong place for our teams.
Do either of you have a threshold of how much account overlap is necessary to say, okay, this is where we should be working?
Yeah, we have a minimum mutual customer overlap before we'll kind of touch integration conversation, just literally because we had such a high volume, somewhere in excess of like 450 inquiries in the first year, which for like two people trying to assess a lot of different partnerships was, just too much. So that really helped in the early days.
Yeah, I'd say we have less of an inbound request. And so that lies both in a threshold. So let's say like around 20 to 30 mutual customers, but then also the quality of those customers. So for example, maybe we don't have a ton of overlap, but in the 20 that we do, they're all enterprise customers. So obviously this is a need that's really going to help us move up market. And that's kind of both that qualitative and quantitative data that we can take to justify our buy-in from the wider team.
Yeah, that's such a great point. You mentioned the qualitative and quantitative, because usually there's like two camps, and I tend to be more of the qualitative guy in general, where it's like, I'm just going to kind of use my strategic decision-making and intuition and, choose how I prioritize things. And then the very data heavy approach, I think it's so crucial what you're doing by pulling the data from your network and from tools like Reveal, and then adding onto it this kind of qualitative layer and the strategic layer, really, really key. Kevin, you were about to jump in there.
I was. Negar essentially answered it for herself and for PartnerStack. But Chris, I was curious, when you're talking and looking at the overlap, this is super tactical. Do you simply look at the overlap counts to help inform that decision of who's a good partner? Or do you open up some of the sharing to see, to Isaac's point, at a qualitative level, who specifically are those overlapping customers and you start to share early on before even determining, is that a partner we're gonna go deep on, or at least allocate resources to?
I think if we had a larger team, initially and sort of now, we'd probably be doing the sort of latter. But in terms of, partnership teams are often quite small, or single, man, woman bands, like quite limited on resource. We tried to keep things super simple, very much a crawl, walk, run approach. So we started by saying, okay, is there a value in building the integration? And again, we're in a different position to some other people. We have quite, good resources on building integrations. So we were able to do that. And it's now, as the partnerships, like the integrations are being built and we're seeing adoption on the integrations, that we're starting to mature our model. And it's a little bit later in the stage that we do that and then start to, let's say, cherry pick from our ecosystem which partners we're going to develop further. And that's when we start to do things like, sharing more detailed overlap, looking more at the prospect customer overlap, trying to align more on long-term mutual action plans of things that we're going to do together to drive, lead generation and ultimately revenue as well.
When you're for both of you, when you're trying to make the case to other departments, hey, there's something here with this partner, we should be doing some stuff together. Maybe it's on the marketing side, maybe it's on the sales side. What is the key thing that's going to make them say, oh, you're right, yeah, I'm excited about this? Is it when you bring that data and show them just the extent of the overlaps, or what's kind of the thing that pushes them over the edge?
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a few different factors depending on where we're at with that partner. So maybe in these early stages where we're evaluating and scoping, in order to get buy-in from my marketing team to say, let's do these webinars, let's run these blogs, maybe an ABM campaign, I need to have some of this data. I think I used to be very similar to you in having that, the qualitative, the gut feel, and I'd run with that for a long time. And then once we started kind of integrating PartnerStack with Reveal and Salesforce and being able to see, and maybe I'll switch my slides to the next.
Yeah, go for it.
Where, once we've launched, we now start to have some of these leading and lagging indicators that then I can pull in to really build that business case. So I'd say it's been kind of like a mix of different data depending on where I'm at in the stages with each partner.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Different stages require different kind of insights and different teams require different aspects. We had a challenge as the ecosystem started to grow quite rapidly where we wanted to engage in more content marketing opportunities. So, guides, webinars to a degree, but more around the content where we had quite a narrow capacity on what we could kind of do. But we had a lot of requests. So in order to kind of facilitate those from both my side and my product partnership manager's side, because we have to kind of balance out, we bring in a channel partner in for this month, or is it a tech partner who's got the strongest kind of opportunity for us? We actually worked with content to build out a content-based scorecard, which is a later stage. So it doesn't affect whether we integrate with them or not, but it does affect on whether we would do certain co-marketing or content motions. And that takes into account mutual customer overlap, it takes into account prospect overlap, and it also looks at things like, reach, size of marketing, kind of capacity, their team size, how well aligned the ICP is, if we're super aligned or if it's upstream, like Negar was saying. And we look at that. And so we have a kind of actual hard score. And below that hard score, we don't tend to engage on content opportunities unless we see another strategic value there that's not really related to the numbers of driving leads.
Is this something that's only happening behind the scenes, or are you openly communicating that to these partners? Hey, look, we're looking for a certain amount of account overlap and these other criteria. Do they know that that's part of the game as almost a little bit of an incentive for them to try to, maybe drive some more, open some more opportunities that overlap with you or things like that?
Yeah, we're super clear at the start with the integration requests that, we require a mutual customer overlap threshold, and we share that with them because, these people are very keen to integrate with, other solutions that align to their kind of market strategy or GTM. So we're just super honest about that. And then later when we get into the content conversation, we tell them there's a score. We don't tell them the specific number, but we do tell them the kind of criteria it's dependent on. We just try to be really transparent with people. We want to work with everyone we can. Ideally, we want to build relationships and work with everyone, small and big, but it's a resource thing on our side and other teams. So we have to be quite transparent about that, I think.
Negar, what are we looking at here? We've got the, obviously the company names are blocked out. But what are you using this view for in Reveal?
Yeah. So as we launch the partnerships, I'd say probably the first few months, there's two different types of data that I'm then leaning into. So these like leading indicators and then lagging indicators. The leading indicators primarily fall within the account mapping. So when I go into Reveal, this is an actual overlap with ourselves and a partner. And I'm looking at, what is the general consensus of what I'm seeing? And this is where that qualitative data meets the quantitative data in terms of my gut feeling is there's a ton of potential with this partner. Let me make sure that that's accurate using our account mapping. So maybe it means that for the first couple months, we have, 20 open opportunities that are existing customers of our partner. They've been longtime customers of that partner, and maybe the ACV is actually pretty high, and it makes sense for us to co-sell or get their support on this, on these deals for the first few months. So I can kind of go in, identify, prospects, open opportunities, contract values, who are the customers of my partner, and then identify where we might be able to get support on these opportunities. These are the low-hanging fruit within the first couple months of a partnership launch that I can kind of base, where I think this partnership is going to go, and some of the indicators of success that I can, start to rely on.
Chris, I'm curious what data you are using in both PartnerStack and Reveal, and how you're using it.
Yeah, so just off of the point of Negar and the slide she's showing there, we have some reports built out in Reveal that show us partner attached to existing opportunities and mutual kind of overlap of open opportunities. And those are like our low-hanging fruit. We actually enable once the partner's enabled, we'll be communicating that through to our sales team. So we have those reports in Salesforce, and we have sales managers who are also in Reveal using some customized report views that we've set up for them, so they can basically go in and see. In a way, we use it with them more holistically, I would say, in that we sort of show them the whole ecosystem. So when they're reviewing pipeline by their territory or by their AEs or by their team or by the ICP, which might be based on number of full-time employees, they can see which partners are attached to those open opportunities, which partners are attached to prospects, and then they can then use that information to request introductions or insights from us. So we're trying to all the time provide them, the sales team, with as much information to accelerate them into a co-sell or knowledge sharing, or it might be even demand gen, looking at that as well to do the co-marketing piece. So we're feeding, we're in the middle feeding out this information, and we've spent the last couple of months actually putting a lot of our time and effort into integrating Reveal into our Salesforce instance and bringing those reports to life in both Salesforce and in Reveal, and providing people with enablement access. So, trying to get more eyes on that data to use it as best they can. And that's kind of the stage we're at now, is experimenting with that.
So you mentioned the sales managers are getting on Reveal. Was that a difficult thing to try to get them to tap into this? And are they where would you say you're at in the process? Do you feel like they're using it and tapping into the partnerships network that you have there like you want them to, or is there still work to be done?
And just to pile onto that, what did you have to bring to the table? We're talking about data, right? And so what were the proof points that you brought to the table to sort of get that buy-in and get them sort of paying attention to this data set where they live?
So we've run a number of different sort of pilot programs and kind of enablement sessions from the middle of last year, where we started to use some Reveal data and just explaining Reveal and Nearbound, kind of data to them and what the benefits would be in a sales scenario. So we've been kind of building this story for a while now. To be honest, from my perspective, the sales leadership got it quite quickly. They're a high-performing team, and they understand that insights can drive more for them. So they kind of understood the value quite quickly. We have to keep kind of reiterating it and kind of banging the drum. And I think this is something I've heard before from other partnership managers. It's about, drip feeding small amounts of information very regularly and keeping kind of your foot on the gas. But yeah, we've been quite easily able to enable them to go into Reveal to use the pipeline view with the new reports, but we did feel the need to bring it into Salesforce first, and that was an important step. Bringing some of that data into Salesforce, where our AEs and sales consultants and sales managers live on a day-to-day, like we went that way rather than taking them into Reveal first, because we didn't want to give them a whole new tool. We felt that was a bit too daunting for them. But going the other way has been relatively easy to kind of facilitate.
That's really interesting. I love how you frame that. You've been building this story over time and kind of drip feeding small amounts of information. Instead, it's always tempting to be like, here's the 30-page, case for why you should start doing this. But I think it's that process. Negar, are you working with your sales team regularly in Reveal or pushing it into their database? Like what's the status of that on your side?
Yeah, I think that what Chris said is super interesting, and I'm really happy that we're having this conversation. What you mentioned around like beating the drum regularly and having this as like a regular drip campaign, because I think like constantly speaking about your partners internally is, these sales, the sales team has probably been in their roles for a really long time. They've been doing their job as an inbound, outbound motion for so long that this Nearbound concept is still very new. So you have to kind of really be able to be nimble and enable them in ways that work really well for the teams that you have. And that could be, enablements, emails, one-to-one sessions with AE. So that could encompass a lot of different things. When I think about like what the lagging indicators of a partnership might look like, the reason I brought in screenshots from Salesforce rather than PartnerStack is because we do something very similar to what Chris mentioned. And that's, obviously our partnerships team and our marketing team are using PartnerStack to power our partner program, but we push all that data into Salesforce. And what that does is it democratizes access to all the information about what our partners are driving, how much they're driving, who those partners are. And now anyone from AE teams, BDR teams to sales leadership now have this, full view of everything that's happening across every team. And they can start comparing and contrasting what those indicators might look like, which helps with buy-in ultimately as well. So I think a little bit of different reporting than what Chris mentioned, but very much the same story. And like, how do we get access of this data to everyone in a place that they're all using it, and making sure that even though we're using PartnerStack to drive, all of the leads from our partners and tracking which partners are most successful, we can push that into PartnerStack and use that information across the entire team.
And on sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to kind of like, I'm nodding furiously. It's super important to it was super important for us from a get-go. We didn't really have a sense of partnerships in the CRM. So we introduced that like in the first couple of months as part of our new team here. And we've kind of continued to extend that to reports like Negar is showing there, and also the Reveal data and the kind of partnership ecosystem overlap. And we've gone a little bit further recently with, we have like, just as some tactical examples, we have the data in Salesforce. People can see what, partners are contributing in terms of partner source leads and partner source revenue. They can see what partners are attached to different open opportunities. They've got the Reveal Get Intro widgets. When they're on an opportunity record or a contact, they can see if there are partners attached, and they can request the intro directly from there. But we've also just we've got a Slack channel that the sales consultants pick up their new leads from. And it basically tells them there's a new lead, this is the contact name, it's kind of round robined across the different teams and territories, but that's where they go. That's another place that, a lot of salespeople are actively working to pick up new leads and, bring new opportunities. And what we did recently was introduce a new field to that says, contact name of the partner, business name of the partner, number of full-time employees, a couple of fields about the lead. But it also now says if there's a partner attached, if it was referred from a partner, sorry, I should say. So, when a channel partner sends something in, it says, HR consultancy X has sent this lead. So all the time we're trying to make it visible to our teams that partners are involved, because they are involved, you just can't always see it. So we want to show that. And we've also replicated that on the sales opportunity record. So if it's a channel partner referral, again, just using that as an example, they can go into the account record or the op record and click on the partner name. They're taken to a record in Salesforce that tells them about the partner, who the partner is, who the contacts are, what the partner does, what discounts they've got, what all the richness that's behind it. And putting that in Salesforce was really important, because that's where our salespeople live, and they don't really go anywhere else other than there in Slack. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's such a huge point. Making sure that the influence that's already happening, that's being made visible. And it's like one of those things that's easy to kind of just take for granted or ignore because you see it, but not everybody else in the organization sees it. So bringing it front and center. Negar, I'll let you finish. I know you have like 3 or 4 more slides here. I'll let you go ahead and just walk through and talk us through the rest of these slides. And I've got a couple more questions we can pepper in.
Cool. Yeah. And obviously Chris or Isaac, Kevin, jump in anytime. So if we move on to ongoing partner management, like what does that strategy look like? I really try to have this focus of how can I be as proactive as possible rather than really reactive with leads that partners are bringing in or requests. So a few things that I probably do regularly every quarter. I go in, I do a full audit of my partners in PartnerStack and Salesforce. I see which partners haven't been engaged for a while and which ones have been really highly engaged. And then I can use this data from, I can use revenue data, link activity, leads or deals submitted. And then I pretty much come up with a plan on how do I work with the ones that haven't been engaged? What more can we do with the ones who are driving the most revenue? And then if a partner isn't driving some of those key KPIs, there needs to be adequate data that I can use internally to support that business case and continuing to work with those partners. So I had another slide here around like this screenshot from one of the betas that Reveal recently launched, which shows me like revenue potential that a partner might have. And so if someone's not driving those KPIs, maybe that we had agreed to, but there is this revenue potential, that probably gives me a little bit more buy-in around how I might be working with them or strategies that I might be employing. Of course, there's a number of other things that we might take into consideration on this, like, conversations I'm having with CSMs or AEs or leads that I'm sending back. But this hard data is usually what internal teams are looking for when I'm telling them that, there's still more that we can do with a partner to get to the point that we need to get to.
That's a great little tease of the partner analytics, which is in beta. Some of you have probably seen it, but that's something that's going to be rolling out and getting ramped up, getting some more data in there, and just the ability to see those things visibly. I know a lot of people have been doing this kind of like just doing it manually, essentially trying to come up with a way to figure this out and map it out. So trying to bring that front and center with the product. So if you don't have that yet in Reveal and you want it, hit us up, let us know. Chris, on the kind of auditing component, are you doing something similar to what Negar described?
I think something just to talk to different points and not double up. One thing we follow quite closely with technology partners is when we've released an integration and we've like launched it and we've done some initial co-marketing, we kind of do a bit of sit and wait on our hands and see what the integration adoption's like and what the movement is on that kind of people connecting to that to sort of validate, that our clients and customers are using it. And then we can go, when we know we're getting good integration adoption, we can look at how those, what partners are new partnerships, tech partnerships got being adopted quite quickly. And then we see that as an opportunity to then engage in this kind of data to see if there's, revenue potential as well. And we kind of combine those two things and look at those together and say, okay, which ones are getting adopted, which ones do our customers like, which ones are valuable on the kind of product side, and also which ones have potential. And we can then rank, further activity and ongoing potential ways to work together.
So both of you have mentioned ways that you are, you've got leads coming in from partners and you're figuring out, managing those, making sure that you're making use of those. You have your sales teams are, pulling in some of that partner information when they're working on deals. Maybe you're doing some marketing. Are you doing things in the opposite direction? Like going out of your way to see overlap and say to a partner, have your sales team, or maybe it's you saying, hey, I see that you have an open opportunity. That's a customer of ours. Can we help you? Have you found any way to kind of do that systematically so that it's not just, okay, we got all these partners, now just give us all the leads and help us close deals? What are you doing kind of proactively to help drive things for them?
I'll start with this one because it has made my weeks very busy. I have one-to-ones with as many people in the organization as I possibly can. So AEs, partner leaders, partner managers, whoever makes sense, mostly AEs or CSMs. And then in those weekly one-to-ones, I make sure like this is the time for us to be reciprocal. Ask me for whatever you want. We can pull up Reveal, and typically that's when we'll account map live together, and we can say, what ops are you working right now? Are they a customer of ours? Maybe they're an open opportunity of ours. Where can I help you? And I use a spreadsheet so that we can open the spreadsheet on the call as well, keep track of everything so that we are both held accountable to who did we say last week we wanted support with or help with? That goes both ways. Who are we saying this week? Can we make updates on where we're at so that week over week we are upholding ourselves to the specific goals, but that it's also a mutually beneficial. So that's kind of the structure where the account mapping is coming in really to be really helpful in making sure that this isn't just me asking for a bunch of things, and that this relationship is working for the both of us.
That's amazing. Wow. That's a phenomenal discipline. Chris, what about on your side?
So yeah, we have a couple of things going on there. One is that we track all of our outbound, our requests to partners for insights or for introductions to help support open or new opportunities, new prospects. And we actually manage the reverse activity of getting, intro requests and information and new leads ultimately for our partners through the product partnership manager that I work with at the moment. So he kind of keeps an eye on, okay, we've requested this many intros from these partners, right? We need to reciprocate. So he's constantly checking, the pipelines and looking at the overlaps to see where we can reciprocate, and asking teams and checking. We have a kind of another scorecard. So some process-driven things here just to help us make things easier. But we have a kind of scorecard that was facilitated by our CS team to know if we can approach an account and then ask them to help, introduce us to, to be kind of introduced to, I should say. So that quickly enables us to evaluate whether we can introduce a partner, and then we help facilitate that. And our goal is, our rule of thumb goal is to always have the equal number of intros requested to the equal number of intros we've kind of helped to provide. So we're always trying to keep it 50-50. It's not always easy, and we can't do it with every partner, but we have a kind of, subset of strategic partners that we work with where we're always trying to send them leads back. So that's something that we do. We have some Slack channels as well where different teams can come in to request partnership introductions. Often they come from AMs who are working accounts where they want a specific integration to do something. And then they can come in there and say, hey, I'm looking at, in our case, we're an ATS, so we have a lot of background check providers. They might come into the channel and say, hey, I'm looking for a background check provider, an assessment who does this and works in these territories, who's good. And we'll provide them with some knowledge and some background and help facilitate an introduction to that partner for that customer. So that's another way that we do it.
You mentioned a couple of times, Chris, throughout this session, the Slack channel, using a Slack channel for, facilitating some of these things. That's actually tomorrow. We're dropping an update for Reveal Engage that is going to involve taking some of those things directly to a Slack channel that's either just between the partner manager and the AE requesting info, or even through the counterpart at the partner company through Slack Connect, and just immediately popping it right into there so that you don't have to manage it from some other software in the background, et cetera. So yeah, again, it's that just bringing things into the flows that people are already working in is such a big part. Kevin, why don't you jump in here?
Yeah, I just thought I'd share something that I've done recently with our own technology, which is we've been working really hard over the last, I'd say, month or so to eliminate as much noise as possible from Slack. And so related to the Reveal signals, right? Because we want people paying attention in there, but sometimes it can get quite noisy. One thing that we've done is we've really limited the amount of notifications that are happening in Slack. But something that's been helpful in driving that reciprocal value is now every time that one of our partners, and we do this by tags, one of our key partners adds a new account that's to an opportunity, right? We're automatically tagging the CSM and not the AE or anybody else in the organization. So that the expectation is anytime one of our partners opens up new pipeline with one of our customers, right? How can that CSM be thinking about as proactively as possible? What information, if nothing else, what intel can I provide to this partner to help advance their open opportunity that they've just created? So that real-time notification has been really helpful to pull CS in as much as we try to pull AEs into those channels in Slack.
I love it. That reminds me of another. I think this should be rolling out soon as well in the next couple of weeks. I think it's with the update we're announcing tomorrow. But the ability to, based on a trigger in Salesforce, so let's say an opportunity is opened, to push to the AE some information about which partners that are on that account are the most important to work with, and a little bit of information about those partners. So kind of giving them a little, like at the right moment in time, so to speak, so that it's just happening, at the point of opportunity opening or whatever other trigger it might be. So anyone who's with us here, if you want a copy of Negar's slides, are you willing to share those, Negar?
Yeah,
just pop in the
definitely.
chat. Just type slides in the chat, and then we'll track that down, and we'll send those off to anybody who wants those. And then any questions from anybody in the chat? Any questions you want to pose to anybody here, or any closing thoughts from Chris Negar as well?
Honestly, I feel like I've learned a lot just from listening to Chris, and Chris, would love to connect with you after to pick your brain on some of the things that you've mentioned. But I think a lot of the takeaways, like, how do we meet our teams where they already are with the data that we're collecting probably in a bunch of different places to make this motion quicker and more effective. So it's great to hear kind of like, it sounds like we're really aligned in terms of bringing information into Slack, Salesforce, from both Reveal and PartnerStack. So yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, I think what I would say just off the back of those last few comments is the Slack piece is super interesting, because you've got the data which people can go and look at, and you can lead them to that data, the horse to water kind of drink piece. But putting it more in once that trigger is initiated, opportunity opened, new partner attached, whatever it is, there's an opportunity, like really at that moment, like you said, to make a conversation happen around that with multiple people. And that's kind of where we're trying to get to, this conversation in the room with the AE from our side, the partner AE, or the AM, whoever it needs to be, a sales manager, getting together. We've just started to push a little bit more on the Slack thing, and that's one of the reasons why we've let the sales managers into Reveal, because we want them to do the Slack, trigger the Slack notifications from there. So they're looking at that, that Reveal pipeline, going, right, okay, partner X is attached to open opportunity. That's that AE, right? I'm going to ping the AE and say, right, we should probably do an intro. What information do you need on this deal? But being able to reduce some of that noise and get that more smooth is going to be a really interesting thing to explore. And I'm really, really excited to kind of see where that can take this, because that's powerful.
I love it. Thanks, both of you. Kevin, you're temporarily fired next week. You just didn't meet standards today. No, I know you're out of town next week, so we're going to miss you, buddy. We're going to miss you. Every Wednesday at noon, Nearbound ABM next week with Jessica Fulis. I think we're going to dive in the week after that, maybe, with some pretty interesting kind of like off the beaten path use cases, including events, and kind of doing some offline account mapping that we can do some cool use cases there. So anyway, and if you have questions, comments, ideas, things you'd like us to dive into, things you'd like us to cover in these sessions, hit us up anytime. You can just email me, Isaac, or actually Morehouse at reveal.co. They didn't give me that first name email address. Kevin, did you get a first name email address?
I did not. I bet you can get one if you want.
You think so? There's not a lot of Isaacs out there. I might be able to advocate for it. Negar and Chris, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we'll see everybody next week.
Cheers.
Thank you.